for some hacks that can really provide results. Because listen, uh, you've probably heard about the big, dream of working on your own, having your own business, and being flexible to do it from wherever. Well, you really can accomplish that, believe it or not, with just your iPad. I've been using it lately just to send out email to my list for product creation and a whole lot more. So what we're going to dive into is actually we're going to do a CreateSpace case study. Okay, so CreateSpace, is Amazon's publishing arm for print books, and I'm sure you've likely never equated creating a print book with your iPad. Okay, and there's some interesting little tricks to it that I'm going to reveal tonight, and I think we're going to have a good time. So what we're going to explore here is creating print books for CreateSpace, whether you just want to use text, images, and more. And you can do that if you understand the process. Now, the process, of course, with print books, whether you're using an iPad or your regular computer, the process is essentially the same. There's some basic foundational information that you need to understand. And one is that your images should always be at least 300 dots per inch or full resolution. And of course, if you're taking them with your iPad, if you're snapping those pictures, you have plenty of resolution. But in some cases, you may still need to task those photographs or those illustrations from somewhere else. And ultimately, they need to come from your Photos folder on your iPad. So what do you do? What do you do if you need an image and it isn't in your Photos folder? Okay, so we're going to explore that. And also, you need text, right? And of course, the iPad is great for, you could write your book right on the iPad. I have a wireless Bluetooth keyboard that I use with mine, and it's great for writing. But what if you want to work with public domain text? Just as a for instance, or you want your text to come from somewhere else. How do you actually even get it in your iPad so that you can use it, right? Another problem that we're going to solve for you tonight. And of course, then there's the whole thing of page size. One of the things that I found is that iPad apps don't necessarily have some interesting features that we kind of take for granted, like defining page sizes, right? So if you want to produce a book for Kindle that is, say, 10 by 7, which is one of their industry standard formats. Let's say you want to produce a children's book that's fully illustrated, that's 10 by 7, high resolution, that you can print on CreateSpace. Can you do that with the iPad? And the response is, yeah, you can, provided that you know exactly how to do it. And that's what I'm going to show you. So before we get started, since we're focusing on CreateSpace, there's a few things that I want to kind of lay the groundwork for by going to the CreateSpace website. And that is that we want to understand the sizes that we need, and you'll understand why I want to share that in just a moment. So if I flip over here to CreateSpace, you'll notice that if we want to, let's say we want to do a full color book. Now, I'm a photographer and I have a couple photo books that I've already created, a few more that I'm working on. And you'll notice here on CreateSpace, they have like both black and white books and color. And you'll notice that some of these have green check marks beside them. And what that essentially means is that the ones that have the green check marks are industry standards, which are kind of important because if your book is an industry standard size, then it qualifies for expanded distribution through CreateSpace and Amazon, which is something that you want. Okay, so what that tells us is that we actually still have, even with the color books, quite a few sizes to play with. We have the industry standard 6 by 9, of course, 7 by 10, but then let's say that you want to create a picture book, that maybe is 8.5, 11, or 8.5, or 8.5 by 8.5, 8.5 inches square. Okay, which is a size that I like. So what do you do if you want to create something like that? And can you? Will that work? So keeping that in mind, what we're going to do is switch over here to my iPad in just a moment. And we're going to give a nice blue screen so that we can see the screen. So here's my iPad. All right. And one of the tools that we're going to be using tonight in a way that you're not supposed to use it is Keynote, and you'll see it right there on the screen in the lower right hand corner. And of course, Keynote is Apple's presentation software, right? And so if I launch it just by tapping on it, we'll give it a moment here to come up. Let me just make sure that we're not disconnected. Okay, here we are. Alright, so I'm going to reframe this window here real quick. I'm not sure what happened with the other window here. So we're going to say goodbye to that. And bring up the big one. So here we are. Alright. Okay, so here we are. And so I'm going to tap on Keynote. And whenever I do, you'll notice that we can create presentation. Now you notice I have a lot of different size presentations in here, including the one that we're teaching right now, Swiss Army. And chances are likely whenever you launch Keynote, you're not going to see these options. You're going to see this getting started option right here, and that's it. And if we create a new presentation by clicking the plus button, we have some templates that we can choose from. And whatever template I pick on, like this photo portfolio one here, what I found is that proportionately these presentations work out to about 10 inches wide by 7.5 inches high. Okay, that's what the dimensions are if you were to work this out into print form. Okay, and of course we can do all sorts of editing in this presentation or whatever, but let's say that I want to make a print book that's 8.5 inches square, which is one of the industry standards for CreateSpace. You know, I kind of like square books. So what if I want to make one on here? How do I do that? If you flip around through the options, there's actually no way that you can change the page size. Even if we click on advanced, there's nothing there. And so how do we get the page size changed? Well, I want to show you a little trick, and I think you're going to like this. It's pretty cool. It took me a little bit to figure this out, but here's what I discovered works really well. And that is if we rely on, say, Keynote or PowerPoint on our computer, okay, just for a moment, I'm going to escape out here, and I'm going to create a new presentation on my computer. And by the way, I don't normally do this because I already have a complete set of templates made for all the sizes that's available in CreateSpace. But so we have this. I'm going to choose page setup. And you notice that it gives me a choice to type in width. So I'm going to, the industry standard for CreateSpace is 8.5 by 8.5, right? That's one of them. And if I want to have a picture book that may have bleed, then I need to allow for that bleed. So it's 1/8 of an inch on all four sides, so we're going to make it 8 3/4 by 8 3/4. And if I click OK, you'll notice that we have this square thing. Okay, so I'm going to just save this, and I'm just going to put it right on my desktop, and we'll call it Create Space 8.75, and I'm going to save it on my desktop. So it's on my desktop now, and I can go back to my presentation and bring my screen up. So You might be thinking, okay, well, great, Tony, that's awesome. It's on your it's on your hold on, my thing just went away. It's on your desktop, but how are you going to get it into your iPad? So we're going to do that right now. As soon as I reappear, okay. So if you already have an iPad or you've been thinking about getting one, then you probably know that there are only certain ways that you can get information into your iPad. You can either get it in there by having it connected to iTunes, or there are external ways of getting information onto your iPad, like iCloud, for instance, which is an Apple service. But there's also other services that I use on a regular basis, like Dropbox, Evernote, cloud-based services that enable us to get information onto our iPad without actually even having to tether it. But let's say that we want to move our PowerPoint presentation onto our iPad using iTunes. You know, iTunes has ways of getting music and movies and books, but what about PowerPoint presentations? So if I switch over here to iTunes, you'll notice that it has a listing of apps that I have currently installed on my iPad, and it has a listing of apps that allow you to transfer documents between the computer and your iPad. So if I click on Keynote, you'll notice that I have some PowerPoint presentations already listed here. So if I click Add and choose the PowerPoint template that I just created, which took me, what, 15 seconds. Okay, and then I switch over to my my iPad here and come up to presentations, hit the plus sign, and choose copy from iTunes. You notice that I now have the 8.75 inch template that I just created. So if I click on that, it's giving me a message that my font is missing. That's okay. So now that's in my space here, so I can just tap that and it'll launch. And so now I have the ability to create a square book in Keynote. Now you might be thinking, yeah, but Tony, is that going to be a high enough resolution for CreateSpace? Because after all, I mean, they require, you know, print resolution 300 dots per inch. Well, yeah, actually it is, because the type is editable just like any other type that you would use in Microsoft Word or InDesign or whatever. And the images that we're going to use are high resolution. So what I'm going to use as a case study for our little square book is we're going to start off with the recipe book. And I'm going to show you some other methods as well, because I like teaching methodology. So in other words, I'm not just teaching you how to create a recipe book here. I am teaching you a methodology that you can apply to any type of creation, okay? Any type of book creation. So the first thing that we need for our book is text, okay? We need text. So I thought that I would make the text as challenging as possible to get a hold of, just to kind of demonstrate what your options are. I mean, I could type in recipes, but I'm lazy. I don't want to do that. So sitting right next to me on my desk, I have an old magazine. It's a cooking magazine from like the 30s. It's in the public domain, and it has a yummy little recipe in it called Pilgrim Fruitcake. Okay, so I'm going to switch apps for a moment over to this one here, which is called Lead OCR, and it only works vertically. Okay, so I'm going to resize the window here so that we can see what I'm doing here. There we are. So it only works vertically, and it's pretty straightforward. It's called Lead Tools OCR, and it works pretty straightforward. I take a picture, and you can see right there's my recipe. I'll zoom in a little closer here. And by the way, one of the things that I love about this app is that it has the ability to recognize text in two columns and sort it all out. So I'm going to focus in on this like that. And, well, actually, you know what? Let's just make it more interesting. I'm going to just do this. Take a picture. Okay. And I'm going to
Make it
choose.
interesting, Tony.
Yeah, interesting is better. You know what? Let's retake it because it's not 100% sharp. So the light in my office is a little low. Okay, it's a little better. It's a little crooked, but we'll use it. Okay, now you'll notice down at the bottom where it says load image, take picture, recognize, and select area. So what I could actually do is choose select area, and then with my finger, just kind of draw a box around where I want it to recognize the type. And I kind of missed the title a little bit, so we may have to type that in. So I'm going to release it. And let's see what we end up with. Boom. Okay, so there's our type, right? Except for the fruitcake title, which I didn't get correct because I didn't include it all. So the next thing we want to do is choose copy to clipboard, or we can double tap and choose select all and copy. Okay. Then I'm going to close this app and we're going to switch back over to Keynote. And let me resize our window again so you can see the biggest possible picture. Okay, and so I'm going to just double tap to edit like it says. Hold my finger down so that it brings up the paste command and choose paste. And we have our text. Now you might be thinking something's missing. So what I'm going to do here is just expand the text box so that it shows all of it. And you might notice that as I bring it in here that it actually included the hard returns, and so we need to get rid of those. I'm going to choose the other box and just delete it because we don't need it. So the first thing I want to do is, actually we don't even need the word fruitcake or pilgrim, so I'm just going to call it fruitcake. And the next thing that we need to do is just get rid of some of these hard returns. So just by simply swiping and moving my finger, we're going to edit this text. Just hit backspaces and add in the additional space. Okay, let me see here. So I'm going to expand this out a little bit actually to make it easier to see what I'm doing. Now, whenever you're going into edit text, you have to double tap it to bring up the text editor, okay? Now, what's amazing to me is, first of all, this all started with me just snapping a picture with my iPad. And the implications behind that are pretty huge, okay? So you're at your local library and you find an old book that you think is fascinating and you don't have a scanner with you. What do? Well, you whip out your iPad and start snapping pictures. That's exactly what you do. As Daniel said at the beginning of this, he and I are big fans of public domain. I've been using it for years, and I just made your life easier because you're no longer limited by, not having the right tools or whatever. Because if you have an iPad in your hand, you have a tool that you can use to edit this information.
Tony, can I just interject something here because I think it's a really good lesson, and that's the fact that you could take that iPad or your iPhone anywhere, and you could be out at a thrift store